when soccer, youth soccer was started in the state of Florida. It was very, very early in the 1950s when a group of students at the University of Miami started a soccer team for adults. And after the games were played, they collected some of the kids around the neighborhood in Coral Gables, and they started a youth program. And that was the only thing we had, perhaps in the whole southeastern United States. I remember at the beginning, you could not find a soccer ball anywhere in the state of Florida, no matter how much money you had. So the way we got our soccer balls was to ask people to go either to New York or St. Louis or outside of the country and please bring back a soccer ball. We did not have any place to buy a soccer ball in Florida. We did not have soccer nets for years, only the people that have a lot of money. And I remember one time that somebody came to me and they said, do you realize that you go to a field over where Lou Confessor is playing their games and they have soccer nets? Can you believe that? They have soccer nets at that field. The reason that was exciting is because everybody else did not have the nets. You just guessed whether the ball went in or not. Soccer was labeled as a foreign sport. I can tell you that because that's what I've been told at the Miami Herald and Miami News. They were a little leery to get a new game started in the state of Florida or in the United States for that matter, because it was considered to be a foreign sport. And youth soccer was only being played in very, very few states. More likely it was St. Louis, Missouri, of all places where they have it. Of course, New York and the Philadelphia area, they had whole groups, but they were not organized nationally. Each group of people that were playing the game were just individual groups locally organized. The adult program was already in force, and I was on the board of directors of the adults. We had a committee also, the youth committee. At that time, we didn't call them youth, we called them juniors. The United States Soccer Federation didn't call it youth, they called it juniors. The program was growing, and it was growing quite fast to the satisfaction of all of us that were involved in the game. So in 1974, that late, when the United States Soccer Federation created its own youth program, which exists today with headquarters in Texas, we decided that in Florida, they should have their own identity as well. And at that meeting, we had 7 or 8 representatives of the youth teams that were playing around in Florida, and also representatives, of course, of the Florida State Adult Association, because they're the ones that called the meeting. At that meeting, which is really one that we should preserve, it was decided that the Florida Youth Soccer Association should be formed and have their own identity and do independently.
We formed the first clubs in Jacksonville under FYSA in 1975 with 329 players. Back then there were 3 of us founded Jacksonville Youth Soccer. Then we got involved with the state, and between us we switched district commissioner. And then I believe it was 1982, I ran for Region B Vice President. And then there was a lot of pressure put on me to run for president. And Dr. Fleck and a couple others taught me how to be an administrator. He and I spent, I guess, about 11 years together. So he being a professional and a professor and everything else, he taught me and guided me. And between us, Tom and I had a group of 4 or 5 people that I call them my kitchen cabinet. We would get together and discuss what's good, what's bad, how could we implement it. But it was a lot of trial and error back then. If I'm not mistaken, there were about 32,000 players playing in 1983. And when I left in 2004, I believe there were about 82,000 plus. It was a great growing time.
Florida Youth Soccer started in 1974. I was in college. I was up in Virginia in college, so I wasn't really connected for a few years. The first few years of the existence of the state association, I was out of state in college. When I would come home during the summer, the family lived in Jacksonville at the time, so I just played in a summer men's league there, and didn't really know anything about, or perhaps there wasn't even youth club teams or youth teams, beyond a men's league of a bunch of college guys and older guys wanting to play during the summer. So it was during graduate school that Tim Carter, who was the first part-time state DOC, actually I think the first part-time DOC was Herb Dunning and then Tim Carter, but they got me involved in the Olympic Development Program. Hands down, my biggest mentor once he moved into the state in 1981 was Tom Fleck. And the impact that Tom had on me as a coach, as a friend, as a person, is immeasurable in my mind. The way that he took me into the professional ranks of coaching in soccer, raised my game as a coach, and then literally took me into the family as well.
Tom just had a knack about working with people, working with players. I've watched him go out to the field and do a session with elite players, upper age groups, and turn around and do a session with a bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds that just have them enraptured and engaged.
I was lucky enough to run into a guy back in the 80s by the name of Tom Fleck, who I realized or thought he knew what he was doing, and what I didn't realize was he just didn't know what he was doing. He was someone that was just an unbelievable talent from the standpoint of coaching kids. There was no such thing when we started out as a national coaching license. And people in Florida were the ones, starting with Tom, but also going down the line of a lot of our state coaches who were the first national youth coaching license recipients.
Dr. Fleck, we started hosting events in Florida that we could do. They figured out new programs to do Olympic development camps. They were able to develop our players, and it started from there and just grew. And a lot of that has to do with our own coaching staff that has stayed involved for all these years. You still have some of the coaches that's been there for 25 years or more. And they have diligently worked to improve programs and training for these kids to be able to be noticed and get to that point of being on the Olympic Development Program teams.
What's happened now that was not a part of the process 40 years ago is many of the coaches that we have now that come into Florida come not only nationally licensed, but they're coming for a job at a club.
The impact of the coaching history in Florida is really rich, and it's had an influence on other parts of the country currently and in the past, and will continue to do so. There's always been, because of that initial genesis with Tom Fleck building a professional coaching staff for the state. Professional in the sense they were all independent contractors, in that regard. They weren't employees of the state association. But when you have on your state staff a Tom Fitzgerald, a Jay Miller, a Michelle Akers, Herb Dunning, Mike Cavone, a Logan Fleck, a Mike Strickler, a Virgil Stringfield, Thomas Rongan. The list is really impressive of the number of people that have been on the state staff for Florida Youth Soccer over the years that have gone on to coach at the international level, the professional level, the college level, the club level, the high school level. It's really impressive how deep and rich the coaching history is in this state, and will continue to be under the guidance of Mike Strickler and whoever continues on, for years to come.
I'm really happy with the direction that FYSA has gone from the time that I've been involved in it, just in the last 14 years. I've seen huge growth, not just, from a standpoint of customer service, but also just the market itself. Technology has been a huge advantage. When I first started, we used to have to manually register the players and get the player passes and, get to different people to drop it off. And, so technology has now allowed us to do things what used to take hours and days now literally takes minutes and a click of a button. On top of that, I think that the coaching education aspect of what FYSA offers now has raised the level of play across the board. Coaches today have resources at their fingertips that 10 years ago weren't even hardly available.
I wrote an email that I still have a copy of about 20 years ago about my dream. And I think the title was, I Too Have a Dream. And it mentions that one day we will have a building, not only for the Youth Association, but we'll have a building that will be, all of soccer is going to be united in that building, and it'll be surrounded by fields like it is today.
Back at least 20 years that we started thinking about, could we even ever get our own complex? It was very difficult trying to find places to play. If you went to State Cup, even though you had a round of maybe 12, you were at 5 different sites. You were lucky to find a field. In fact, you were lucky to find a field that had grass all over the thing. Some of it was sand. You had to try to prep it before you got there. That was a dream that goes way back. I mean, that included Donna Hackworth, that's no longer with us, Joe Davis. He used to go to everybody in Orlando and talk about trying to get a site. So that was like 20 years in the making, and it's just, that was a dream. We saw it come true. It's there. Everybody's got an office. And you can actually put up some memorabilia, and we've actually pulled together 3 fractions: the youth, the seniors, and the referees. And that was a dream of many people that started 20 years ago.
We've got so many opportunities today, and I hope with the emphasis, and like I said, whether it was back in the 50s and the 60s or the 70s and 80s, coaching, education, someone offers you an opportunity to learn a little bit about the game. I hope people will take that opportunity, because it only makes you a better person, more knowledgeable about the game, which you can transfer to your child, you can transfer to your club, you can transfer to your league, you can transfer to your state.
How many kids have come around, and I'll go out sometimes and, go with the wife and whatever, and all of a sudden you hear behind me, hey, coach. Even though I never coached that kid, but I was there. I was part of when they were winning, when they went to regionals, when they went State Cup, when they did that. And they come behind me and coach. And I look at him like, hey, how you doing? He goes, you don't remember me? I go, no, not really. He goes, you remember I used to play for this team, and you went with us to Oklahoma. You went with us to South Carolina. Then I kind of remember. And, it's great feeling that the kids that are over, they're not playing anymore because they're, too old now. They come back and they still remember those times that you went there and you supported them. And I remember you took us to dinner one night and took a team. There was a team from Miami Beach, or from Waco, that went all the way to nationals. My first time going to nationals. I took them all out to dinner one day. They still, when they see me, hey, remember you took us to the I forgot the name and out of place, a restaurant, and remember we had a great time. Thank you. You were the first one out from outside a team that ever took us out to dinner, and those are the things that it make you feel good.
Kids now, I said the first kids I remember being involved with were 68s, but I had a lot of kids that were in the age groups of 70, 71 through 79, and these are not kids anymore. They're parents, and seeing them come back and support the game of soccer is Yeah, it's just I don't know, it's just amazing to see how these kids are now parents and they're now coaching their kids. And
Not last year, the year before, we had 2 national champions. And one on the boys' side and one on the girls' side. That girl team won the 19s. We've been following since they were real young, and they have been to Southern regionals. They have been so close. So when they won that last game, I started running on the field. I started jumping like if I was one part of the team. If I knew the girls came and hugged me and all that. That celebration, that I did the same for the boys from the rush team, the 18 boys. I'm one of the presidents that goes out there, and I don't care. I scream for my teams. Some of the other people are just sitting in the golf carts, looking, and no, I scream and I jump and I blow the horn on the golf cart and everything because I enjoy that. I feel they're representing me. They're representing the whole state. I'm going to cheer for them. I'm going to support them 100% no matter what. And it's great. It feels great that when they won those 2 nationals, I thought I had won. I had coached them since they were little. I was part of the team.
It's satisfaction that what we had a hand in is continued to grow. It's like planting flowers. You put the seed in the ground and it's nothing. Within a few weeks, you see a bud and then boom. I'm proud of what we did. I have made many lifetime friends through this game. Even though I was handicapped from the beginning, I was accepted. We fought tooth and nail, and to this day, I have coaches, referees, players that either the player or the parent or the coach will come up and say, do you remember? My head ain't big enough for all the memories, but yeah, it makes most people feel good. Recently I had a woman stop me at the post office and say, you coached my grandson when he was 10. He went to Duke University, was All-American kicker for 4 years. It's just amazing what comes out of what we do in youth sports to help young kids to grow up to what we expect out of them. Yep.